Slovakia. Officially the Slovak Republic, is a landlocked country in Central Europe. It is bordered by Poland to the north, Ukraine to the east, Hungary to the south, Austria to the west, and the Czech Republic to the northwest. Slovakia's mostly mountainous territory spans about 49,000 square kilometers, hosting a population exceeding 5.4 million. The capital and largest city is Bratislava, while the second largest city is Košice. The Slavs arrived in the territory of the present-day Slovakia in the 5th and 6th centuries. From the late 6th century, parts of modern Slovakia were incorporated in the Avar Khaganate. In the 7th century, the Slavs played a significant role in the creation of Samos Empire. In the 9th century, the Avar Khaganate dissolved, and the Slavs established the Principality of Nitra, which was later conquered by the Principality of Moravia, leading to the formation of Great Moravia. In the 10th century, after the dissolution of Great Moravia, the territory was integrated into the Principality of Hungary, which then became the Kingdom of Hungary in 1000. In 1241 and 1242, after the Mongol invasion of Europe, much of the territory was destroyed, but was recovered largely thanks to Belafor. After World War I and the dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the state of Czechoslovakia was established, incorporating Slovakia. In the lead-up to World War II, local fascist parties gradually came to power in the Slovak lands, and the First Slovak Republic was established as a clerical fascist client state under the control of Nazi Germany. In 1940, the country joined the Axis when its leaders signed the Tripartite Pact. The local Jewish population was heavily persecuted, with almost 70,000 Jews being murdered or deported. Internal opposition to the fascist government's policies culminated in the Slovak national uprising, itself triggered by the Nazi German occupation of the country. Although the uprising was eventually suppressed, partisan resistance continued, and Czechoslovak independence was re-established after the country's liberation at the end of the war. Following the Soviet-backed coup of 1948, Czechoslovakia became a communist state within the Eastern Bloc, a satellite state of the Soviet Union and member of the Warsaw Pact. Attempts to liberalize communism culminated in the Prague Spring, which was suppressed by the Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia in August 1968. In 1989, the Velvet Revolution peacefully ended communist rule in Czechoslovakia. Slovakia became an independent state on January 1, 1993 after the peaceful dissolution of Czechoslovakia, sometimes referred to as the Velvet Divorce. Slovakia is a developed country with an advanced high-income economy. The country maintains a combination of a market economy with a comprehensive social security system, providing citizens with universal health care, free education, and one of the longest paid parental leaves in the OECD. Slovakia is a member of the European Union, the Eurozone, the Schengen area, the United Nations, NATO, CERN, the OECD, the WTO, the Council of Europe, the Visegrad Group, and the OSCE. Slovakia is also home to 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The world's largest per capita car producer, Slovakia manufactured a total of 1.1 million cars in 2019, representing 43% of its total industrial output. History. The oldest surviving human artifacts from Slovakia are found near Nové Mesto nad Váhom and are dated at 270,000 BCE, in the early Paleolithic era. These ancient tools, made by the Clactonian technique, bear witness to the ancient habitation of Slovakia. Other stone tools from the Middle Paleolithic era come from the Privat cave in Bojanus and from other nearby sites. The most important discovery from that era is a Neanderthal cranium, discovered near Ganovce, a village in northern Slovakia. Archaeologists have found prehistoric human skeletons in the region, as well as numerous objects and vestiges of the Gravitayan culture, principally in the river valleys of Nitra, Hran, Ipal, Va, and as far as the city of Zilina, and near the foot of the Vihorlat, Inovec, and Tribec mountains, as well as in the Mijava mountains. The most well-known finds include the oldest female statue made of mammoth bone, the famous Venus of Moravany. The statue was found in the 1940s in Moravany nad Vajom near Pstany. Numerous necklaces made of shells from Cyprica thermophile gastropods of the Tertiary period have come from the sites of Zakovska, Podkovas, Hubina, and Radicina. These findings provide the most ancient evidence of commercial exchanges carried out between the Mediterranean and Central Europe. Bronze Age. During the Bronze Age, the geographical territory of modern-day Slovakia went through three stages of development, stretching from 2000 to 800 BCE. Major cultural, economic, and political development can be attributed to the significant growth in production of copper, especially in central Slovakia, for example in Spania Dolina and northwest Slovakia. Copper became a stable source of prosperity for the local population. After the disappearance of the Kakani and Velitais cultures, the Lusatian people expanded building of strong and complex fortifications, with the large permanent buildings and administrative centers. Excavations of Lusatian hill forts document the substantial development of trade and agriculture at that period. The richness and diversity of tombs increased considerably. The inhabitants of the area manufactured arms, shields, jewelry, dishes, and statues. Iron Age. The arrival of tribes from Thrace disrupted the people of the Kalenderberg culture, who lived in the hamlets located on the plain and in the hill forts like Molper, near Smolenus, in the Little Carpathians. During Hallstatt times, monumental burial mounds were erected in western Slovakia, with princely equipment consisting of richly decorated vessels, ornaments, and decorations. The burial rites consisted entirely of cremation. Common people were buried in flat urn-field cemeteries. A special role was given to weaving and the production of textiles. The local power of the princes of the Hallstatt period disappeared in Slovakia during the century before the middle of 1st millennium BCE, after strife between the Scytho-Thracian people and locals, resulting in abandonment of the old hill forts. Relatively depopulated areas soon caught the interest of emerging Celtic tribes, who advanced from the south towards the north, following the Slovak rivers, peacefully integrating into the remnants of the local population. From around 500 BCE, the territory of modern-day Slovakia was settled by Celts, who built powerful oppida on the sites of modern-day Bratislava and Devon. Biates, silver coins with inscriptions in the Latin alphabet, represent the first known use of writing in Slovakia. At the northern regions, remnants of the local population of Lusatian origin, together with Celtic and later Dacian influence, gave rise to the unique Puchov culture, with advanced crafts and iron working, many hill forts and fortified settlements of central type with the coinage of the Velkobistareki type. This culture is often connected with the Celtic tribe mentioned in Roman sources as Codini. Roman period. From 2 CE, the expanding Roman Empire established and maintained a series of outposts around and just south of the Danube, the largest of which were known as Carnuntum, whose remains are on the main road halfway between Vienna and Bratislava and Brzecia. Such Roman border settlements were built on the present area of Rusovce, currently a suburb of Bratislava. The military fort was surrounded by a civilian vicus and several farms of the Villa Rustica type. The name of this settlement was Gerolata. The military fort had an auxiliary cavalry unit, approximately 300 horses strong, modeled after the Cananafates. The remains of Roman buildings have also survived in Stupava, Devon Castle, Bratislava Castle Hill, and the Bratislava Dubrovka suburb. Near the northernmost line of the Roman hinterlands, the Limes Romanus, there existed the winter camp of Lagaricio, where the auxiliary of Legion II fought and prevailed in a decisive battle over the Germanic Quadi tribe in 179 CE during the Marcomannic Wars. The kingdom of Vannius, a kingdom founded by the Germanic Swiba tribes of Quadi and Marcomanni, as well as several small Germanic and Celtic tribes, including the Osi and Kodani, existed in western and central Slovakia from 826 BCE to 179 CE. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, the Huns began to leave the Central Asian steppes. They crossed the Danube in 377 CE and occupied Pannonia, which they used for 75 years as their base for launching looting raids into Western Europe. However, Attila's death in 453 brought about the disappearance of the Hunnic Empire. In 568, a Turco-Mongol tribal confederacy, the Avars, conducted its invasion into the Middle Danube region. The Avars occupied the lowlands of the Pannonian Plain and established an empire dominating the Carpathian Basin. In 623, the Slavic population living in the western parts of Pannonia seceded from their empire after a revolution led by Samo, a Frankish merchant. After 626, the Avar power started a gradual decline, but its reign lasted to 804. Slavic states. The Slavic tribes settled in the territory of present-day Slovakia in the 5th century. Western Slovakia was the center of Samo's empire in the 7th century. A Slavic state known as the Principality of Nitra arose in the 8th century, and its ruler Pribina had the first known Christian church of the territory of present-day Slovakia consecrated by 828. Together with neighboring Moravia, the principality formed the core of the Great Moravian Empire from 833. The high point of this Slavonic Empire came with the arrival of Saints Cyril and Methodius in 863, during the reign of Duke Rastislav, and the territorial expansion under King Svetopluk I. Great Moravia arose around 830 when Mojamir I unified the Slavic tribes settled north of the Danube and extended the Moravian supremacy over them. When Mojamir I endeavored to secede from the supremacy of the King of East Francia in 846, King Louis the German deposed him and assisted Mojamir's nephew Rastislav in acquiring the throne. The new monarch pursued an independent policy. After stopping a Frankish attack in 855, he also sought to weaken the influence of Frankish priests preaching in his realm. Duke Rastislav asked the Byzantine Emperor Michael III to send teachers who would interpret Christianity in the Slavic vernacular. On Rastislav's request, two brothers, Byzantine officials, and missionaries Saints Cyril and Methodius came in 863. Cyril developed the first Slavic alphabet and translated the Gospel into the Old Church Slavonic language. Rastislav was also preoccupied with the security and administration of his state. Numerous fortified castles built throughout the country are dated to his reign, and some of them are also mentioned in connection with Rastislav by Frankish chronicles. During Rastislav's reign, the Principality of Nitra was given to his nephew Svetopluk as an appanage. The rebellious prince allied himself with the Franks and overthrew his uncle in 870. Similarly to his predecessor, Svetopluk I assumed the title of the king. During his reign, the Great Moravian Empire reached its greatest territorial extent, when not only present-day Moravia and Slovakia but also present-day northern and central Hungary, Lower Austria, Bohemia, Silesia, Lusatia, southern Poland, and northern Serbia belonged to the empire, but the exact borders of his domains are still disputed by modern authors. Svetopluk also withstood attacks of the Magyar tribes and the Bulgarian Empire, although sometimes it was he who hired the Magyars when waging war against East Francia. In 880, Pope John VIII set up an independent ecclesiastical province in Great Moravia with Archbishop Methodius as its head. He also named the German cleric Wiching the Bishop of Nitra. After the death of Prince Svetopluk in 894, his sons Mojamir II and Svetopluk II succeeded him as the Prince of Great Moravia and the Prince of Nitra respectively. However, they started to quarrel for domination of the whole empire, weakened by an internal conflict as well as by constant warfare with Eastern Francia. Great Moravia lost most of its peripheral territories. In the meantime, the semi-nomadic Magyar tribes, possibly having suffered defeat from the similarly nomadic Pechenegs, left their territories east of the Carpathian Mountains, invaded the Carpathian Basin and started to occupy the territory gradually around 896. Their army's advance may have been promoted by continuous wars among the countries of the region whose rulers still hired them occasionally to intervene in their struggles. It is not known what happened with both Mojamir II and Svetopluk II because they are not mentioned in written sources after 906. In 3 battles near Bratislava, the Magyars routed Bavarian armies. Some historians put this year as the date of the breakup of the Great Moravian Empire, due to the Hungarian conquest. Other historians take the date a little bit earlier. Great Moravia left behind a lasting legacy in Central and Eastern Europe. The Glagolitic script and its successor Cyrillic were disseminated to other Slavic countries, charting a new path in their socio-cultural development. The Kingdom of Hungary, the Habsburg monarchy and the Ottoman Empire. Following the disintegration of the Great Moravian Empire at the turn of the 10th century, the Hungarians annexed the territory comprising modern Slovakia. After their defeat on the river Lech, the Hungarians abandoned their nomadic ways and settled in the center of the Carpathian Valley, slowly adopting Christianity and began to build a new state, the Hungarian Kingdom. In the years 1001 and 1018, Slovakia was part of the Kingdom of Poland, having been conquered by Boleslausy the Brave. After the territory of Slovakia was returned to Hungary, a semi-autonomous polity continued to exist called Duchy of Nitra. Comprising roughly the territory of Principality of Nitra and Bihar Principality, they formed what was called a tertia pars regna, third of a kingdom. This polity existed up until 1108-1110, after which it was not restored. After this, until the year 1918, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, the territory of Slovakia was an integral part of the Hungarian state. The ethnic composition of Slovakia became more diverse with the arrival of the Carpathian Germans in the 13th century and the Jews in the 14th century. A significant decline in the population resulted from the invasion of the Mongols in 1241 and the subsequent famine. However, in medieval times the area of Slovakia was characterized by German and Jewish immigration, burgeoning towns, construction of numerous stone castles, and the cultivation of the arts. The arrival of German elements sometimes proved a problem for the autochthonous Slovaks and even Hungarians in the broader Hungary, since they often quickly gained most power in medieval towns, only to later refuse to share it. Breaking of old customs by Germans often resulted in national quarrels. One of which had to be sorted out by the King Louis I with the proclamation Privilegium pro Slavis in the year 1381. According to this privilege, Slovaks and Germans were to occupy each half of the seats in the city council of Žilina and the mayor should be elected each year, alternating between those nationalities. This would not be the last such case. In 1465, King Matthias Corvinus founded the Hungarian Kingdom's third university, in Pressburg, but it was closed in 1490 after his death. Hussites also settled in the region after the Hussite Wars. Owing to the Ottoman Empire's expansion into Hungarian territory, Bratislava was designated the new capital of Hungary in 1536, ahead of the fall of the old Hungarian capital of Buda in 1541. It became part of the Austrian Habsburg monarchy, marking the beginning of a new era. The territory comprising modern Slovakia, then known as Upper Hungary, became the place of settlement for nearly two-thirds of the Magyar nobility fleeing the Turks and became far more linguistically and culturally Hungarian than it was before. Partly thanks to old Hussite families and Slovaks studying under Martin Luther, the region then experienced a growth in Protestantism. For a short period in the 17th century, most Slovaks were Lutherans. They defied the Catholic Habsburgs and sought protection from neighboring Transylvania, a rival continuation of the Magyar state that practiced religious tolerance and normally had Ottoman backing. Upper Hungary, modern Slovakia, became the site of frequent wars between Catholics in the West Territory and Protestants in the East, as well as against Turks. The frontier was on a constant state of military alert and heavily fortified by castles and citadels often manned by Catholic German and Slovak troops on the Habsburg side. By 1648, Slovakia was not spared the Counter-Reformation, which brought the majority of its population from Lutheranism back to Roman Catholicism. In 1655, the printing press at the Trnava University produced the Jesuit Benedict Zalozzi's Cantus Catholici, a Catholic hymnal in Slovak that reaffirmed links to the earlier works of Cyril and Methodius. The Ottoman Wars, the rivalry between Austria and Transylvania, and the frequent insurrections against the Habsburg monarchy inflicted a great deal of devastation, especially in the rural areas. In the Austro-Turkish War, a Turkish army led by the Grand Vizier decimated Slovakia. In 1682, the Principality of Upper Hungary, a short-lived Ottoman vassal state, was established in the territory of modern Slovakia. Prior to this, regions on its southern rim were already encompassed in the Ugry, Button, and Uvar islets. Thocalese Kurik rebels from the Principality of Upper Hungary fought alongside the Turks against the Austrians and Poles at the Battle of Vienna of 1683 led by John III Sobieski. As the Turks withdrew from Hungary in the late 17th century, the importance of the territory composing modern Slovakia decreased, although Pressburg retained its status as the capital of Hungary until 1848 when it was transferred back to Buda. During the Revolution of 1848–49, the Slovaks supported the Austrian Emperor, hoping for independence from the Hungarian part of the dual monarchy, but they failed to achieve their aim. Thereafter, relations between the nationalities deteriorated, culminating in the secession of Slovakia from Hungary after World War I. Czechoslovak independence. On October 18, 1918, Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, Milan Rastislav Stefanik and Edvard Benes declared in Washington, D.C. the independence for the territories of Bohemia, Moravia, Silesia, Upper Hungary, and Carpathian Ruthenia from the Austro-Hungarian Empire and proclaimed a common state, Czechoslovakia. In 1919, during the chaos following the breakup of Austria-Hungary, Czechoslovakia was formed with numerous Germans, Slovaks, Hungarians, and Ruthenians within the newly set borders. The borders were set by the Treaty of Saint-Germain and Treaty of Trianon. In the peace following the World War, Czechoslovakia emerged as a sovereign European state. It provided what were at the time rather extensive rights to its minorities. During the interwar period, democratic Czechoslovakia was allied with France, and also with Romania and Yugoslavia. However, the Locarno treaties of 1925 left East European security open. Both Czechs and Slovaks enjoyed a period of relative prosperity. There was progress in not only the development of the country's economy but also culture and educational opportunities. Yet the Great Depression caused a sharp economic downturn, followed by political disruption and insecurity in Europe. In the 1930s, Czechoslovakia came under continuous pressure from the revanchist governments of Germany, Hungary, and Poland, who used the aggrieved minorities in the country as a useful vehicle. Revision of the borders was called for, as Czechs constituted only 43% of the population. Eventually, this pressure led to the Munich Agreement of September 1938, which allowed the majority ethnic Germans in the Sudetenland, borderlands of Czechoslovakia, to join with Germany. The remaining minorities stepped up their pressures for autonomy and the state became federalized, with diets in Slovakia and Ruthenia. The remainder of Czechoslovakia was renamed Czechoslovakia and promised a greater degree of Slovak political autonomy. This, however, failed to materialize. Parts of southern and eastern Slovakia were also reclaimed by Hungary at the First Vienna Award of November 1938. World War II. After the Munich Agreement and its Vienna Award, Nazi Germany threatened to annex part of Slovakia and allow the remaining regions to be partitioned by Hungary or Poland unless independence was declared. Thus, Slovakia seceded from Czechoslovakia in March 1939 and allied itself, as demanded by Germany, with Hitler's coalition. Secession had created the first Slovak state in history. The government of the First Slovak Republic, led by Josef Tiso and Vojtěch Tuka, was strongly influenced by Germany and gradually became a puppet regime in many respects. On November 24, 1940, Slovakia joined the Axis when its leaders signed the Tripartite Pact. Meanwhile, the Czechoslovak government in exile sought to reverse the Munich Agreement and the subsequent German occupation of Czechoslovakia and to return the republic to its 1937 boundaries. The government operated from London and it was ultimately considered, by those countries that recognized it, the legitimate government for Czechoslovakia throughout the Second World War. As part of the Holocaust in Slovakia, 75,000 Jews out of 80,000 who remained on Slovak territory after Hungary had seized southern regions were deported and taken to German death camps. Thousands of Jews, Gypsies, and other politically undesirable people remained in Slovak forced labor camps in Seard, Vinny, and Nováky. Tiso, through the granting of presidential exceptions, allowed between 1,000 and 4,000 people crucial to the war economy to avoid deportations. Under Tiso's government and Hungarian occupation, the vast majority of Slovakia's pre-war Jewish population between 75,000 and 105,000 individuals including those who perished from the occupied territory were murdered. The Slovak state paid Germany 500 Rm per every deported Jew for retraining and accommodation. After it became clear that the Soviet Red Army was going to push the Nazis out of Eastern and Central Europe, an anti-Nazi resistance movement launched a fierce armed insurrection, known as the Slovak National Uprising, near the end of summer 1944. A bloody German occupation and a guerrilla war followed. Germans and their local collaborators completely destroyed 93 villages and massacred thousands of civilians, often hundreds at a time. The territory of Slovakia was liberated by Soviet and Romanian forces by the end of April 1945. Communist Party rule in Czechoslovakia. After World War II, Czechoslovakia was reconstituted and Josef Tiso was executed in 1947 for collaboration with the Nazis. More than 80,000 Hungarians and 32,000 Germans were forced to leave Slovakia, in a series of population transfers initiated by the Allies at the Potsdam Conference. Out of about 130,000 Carpathian Germans in Slovakia in 1938, by 1947 only some 20,000 remained. The NKVD arrested and deported over 20,000 people to Siberia. As a result of the Yalta Conference, Czechoslovakia came under the influence and later under direct occupation of the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact, after a coup in 1948. 8,240 people went to forced labor camps in 1948 to 1953. In 1968, following the Prague Spring, the country was invaded by the Warsaw Pact forces, ending a period of liberalization under the leadership of Alexander Dubček. 137 Czechoslovak civilians were killed and 500 seriously wounded during the occupation. In 1969, Czechoslovakia became a federation of the Czech Socialist Republic and the Slovak Socialist Republic in the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. It became a puppet state of the Soviet Union, but it was never part of the Soviet Union and remained independent to a certain degree. Borders with the West were protected by the Iron Curtain. About 600 people, men, women, and children, were killed on the Czechoslovak border with Austria and West Germany between 1948 and 1989. Dissolution of Czechoslovakia. The end of communist rule in Czechoslovakia in 1989, during the peaceful Velvet Revolution, was followed once again by the country's dissolution, this time into two successor states. The word socialist was dropped in the names of the two republics, with the Slovak Socialist Republic renamed as Slovak Republic. On July 17, 1992, Slovakia, led by Prime Minister Vladimir Maciar, declared itself a sovereign state, meaning that its laws took precedence over those of the federal government. Throughout the autumn of 1992, Maciar and Czech Prime Minister Václav Klaus negotiated the details for disbanding the federation. In November, the federal parliament voted to dissolve the country officially on December 31, 1992. The Slovak Republic and the Czech Republic went their separate ways after January 1, 1993, an event sometimes called the Velvet Divorce. Slovakia has, nevertheless, remained a close partner with the Czech Republic. Both countries cooperate with Hungary and Poland in the Visegrad Group. Slovakia became a member of NATO on March 29, 2004 and of the European Union on May 1, 2004. December 21, 2007 saw Slovakia join the Schengen area, allowing visa-free travel. On January 1, 2009, Slovakia adopted the euro as its national currency at 30.1260 korunas to the euro. In 2019, Zuzana Čaputová became Slovakia's first female president. Government and politics. Slovakia is a parliamentary democratic republic with a multi-party system. The last parliamentary elections were held on September 30, 2023 and two rounds of presidential elections took place on March 23 and April 6, 2024. The Slovak head of state and the formal head of the executive is the president, currently Peter Pellegrini, though with very limited powers. The president is elected by direct, popular vote under the two-round system for a 5-year term. Most executive power lies with the head of government, the Prime Minister, currently Robert Fico, who is usually the leader of the winning party and who needs to form a majority coalition in the parliament. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President. The remainder of the cabinet is appointed by the President on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. Slovakia's highest legislative body is the 150-seat unicameral National Council of the Slovak Republic. Delegates are elected for a 4-year term on the basis of proportional representation. Slovakia's highest judicial body is the Constitutional Court of Slovakia, which rules on constitutional issues. The 13 members of this court are appointed by the President from a slate of candidates nominated by Parliament. The Constitution of the Slovak Republic was ratified September 1, 1992, and became effective January 1, 1993. It was amended in September 1998 to allow direct election of the President and again in February 2001 due to EU admission requirements. The civil law system is based on Austro-Hungarian codes. The legal code was modified to comply with the obligations of Organization on Security and Cooperation in Europe and to expunge the Marxist, Leninist legal theory. Slovakia accepts the compulsory International Court of Justice jurisdiction with reservations. Foreign relations. The Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs is responsible for maintaining the Slovak Republic's external relations and the management of its international diplomatic missions. The ministry's director is Juraj Blanar. The ministry oversees Slovakia's affairs with foreign entities, including bilateral relations with individual nations and its representation in international organizations. Slovakia joined the European Union and NATO in 2004 and the Eurozone in 2009. Slovakia is a member of the United Nations since 1993 and participates in its specialized agencies. The country was, on October 10, 2005, elected to a two-year term on the UN Security Council from 2006 to 2007. It is also a member of the Schengen Area, the Council of Europe, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the World Trade Organization, the Union for the Mediterranean, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, the Bucharest Nine and part of the Visegrad Group. In 2023, Slovak citizens had visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to 184 countries and territories, putting the Slovak passport at the 8th rank of travel freedom, tied with Latvia and Slovenia on the Henley Passport Index. Slovakia maintains diplomatic relations with 134 countries, primarily through its Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As of December 2013, Slovakia maintained 90 missions abroad, including 64 embassies, 7 missions to multilateral organizations, 9 consulates general, 1 consular office, 1 Slovak Economic and Cultural Office and 8 Slovak institutes. There are 44 embassies and 35 honorary consulates in Bratislava. Slovakia and the United States retain strong diplomatic ties and cooperate in the military and law enforcement areas. The U.S. Department of Defense programs has contributed significantly to Slovak military reforms. Long history tracing back to the American Revolutionary War, when a Slovak major, Jan Ladislav Polerecki, fought alongside George Washington in Yorktown to win America's independence. President Woodrow Wilson and the United States played a major role in the establishment of the original Czechoslovak state on October 28, 1918. Around 1 million Americans have their roots in Slovakia, and many retain strong cultural and familial ties to the Slovak Republic. American steel producer U.S. Steel is the largest employer in eastern Slovakia in Košice with 12,000 employees. Economy. Slovakia has a high-income developed economy. In 2024, with a population of only 5 million, it ranked as the 46th richest country with a per capita gross domestic product based on purchasing power parity of 44,081, and the 61st largest economy in the world with a GDP of 140,808 billion. Its GDP per capita equaling 69% of the average of the European Union in 2021. The country has difficulties addressing regional imbalances in wealth and employment. GDP per capita ranges from 188% of EU average in Bratislava to 54% in eastern Slovakia. Bratislava is the 19th richest region of the European Union by GDP per capita. Although regional income inequality is high, 90% of citizens own their homes. The OECD in 2017 reported, the Slovak Republic continues exhibiting robust economic performance, with strong growth backed by a sound financial sector, low public debt and high international competitiveness drawing on large inward investment. The country used to be dubbed the Tatra Tiger in the 2000s as it successfully transformed from a centrally planned economy to a market-driven economy and achieved, on average, roughly 6% per capita GDP growth each year from 2000 to 2008. Major privatizations are completed, the banking sector is almost completely in private hands, and foreign investment has risen. The Slovak economy is one of the fastest growing economies in Europe and third fastest in Eurozone. In 2007, 2008 and 2010 with GDP growth of 10%, 6% and 4%, respectively. In 2016, more than 86% of Slovak exports went to the European Union, and more than 50% of Slovak imports came from other European Union member states. The ratio of government debt to GDP in Slovakia reached 49.4% by the end of 2018, far below the OECD average. Unemployment, peaking at 19% at the end of 1999, decreased to 4.9% in 2019, lowest recorded rate in Slovak history. Slovakia adopted the euro currency on January 1, 2009 as the 16th member of the Eurozone. The euro in Slovakia was approved by the European Commission on May 7, 2008. The Slovak koruna was revalued on May 28, 2008 to 30.126 for €1, which was also the exchange rate for the euro. The Slovak government encourages foreign investment since it is one of the driving forces of the economy. Slovakia is an attractive country for foreign investors mainly because of its low wages, low tax rates, well-educated labor force, favorable geographic location in the heart of Central Europe, strong political stability and good international relations reinforced by the country's accession to the European Union. Some regions, mostly at the east of Slovakia, have failed to attract major investment, which has aggravated regional disparities in many economic and social areas. Foreign direct investment inflow grew more than 600% from 2000 and cumulatively reached an all-time high of 17.3 billion in 2006, or around 22,000 per capita by the end of 2008. Slovakia ranks 45th out of 190 economies in terms of ease of doing business, according to the 2020 World Bank Doing Business Report, and 49th out of the 63 countries and territories in terms of competitive economy, according to the 2022 World Competitiveness Yearbook Report. Languages. The official language is Slovak, a member of the Slavic language family. Hungarian is widely spoken in the southern regions, and Russian is used in some parts of the northeast. Minority languages hold co-official status in the municipalities in which the size of the minority population meets the legal threshold of 15% in 2 consecutive censuses. Slovakia is ranked among the top EU countries regarding the knowledge of foreign languages. In 2007, 68% of the population aged from 25 to 64 years claimed to speak 2 or more foreign languages, finishing second highest in the European Union. The best-known foreign language in Slovakia is Czech. Eurostat report also shows that 98% of Slovak students in the upper secondary education take on 2 foreign languages, ranking highly over the average 60% in the European Union. According to a Eurobarometer survey from 2012, 26% of the population have knowledge of English at a conversational level, followed by German and Russian. The deaf community uses the Slovak Sign Language. Even though spoken Czech and Slovak are similar, the Slovak Sign Language is not particularly close to Czech Sign Language. Religion. The Slovak Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. In 2021, 55% of population identified themselves as Roman Catholics, 5% as Lutherans, 1.5% as Calvinists, 4% as Greek Catholics, 1% as Orthodox, 24% identified themselves as atheists or non-religious, and 6.5% did not answer the question about their belief. In 2004, about 1/3 of the church members regularly attended church services. The Slovak Greek Catholic Church is an Eastern Rite Sui Iris Catholic Church. Before World War II, An estimated 90,000 Jews lived in Slovakia, but most were murdered during the Holocaust. After further reductions due to post-war emigration and assimilation, only about 2,300 Jews remain today. There are 18 state-registered religions in Slovakia, of which 16 are Christian, 1 is Jewish, and 1 is the Bahá'í faith. In 2016, a two-thirds majority of the Slovak parliament passed a new bill that would obstruct Islam and other religious organizations from becoming state-recognized religions by doubling the minimum followers threshold from 25,000 to 50,000. However, Slovakia's then President Andrej Kiska vetoed the bill. In 2010, there were an estimated 5,000 Muslims in Slovakia, representing less than 0.1% of the country's population. Slovakia is the only member state of the European Union to not have any mosques. Cuisine. Traditional Slovak cuisine is based mainly on pork. Poultry, that is chicken, is the most widely eaten, followed by duck, goose, and turkey, flour, potatoes, cabbage, and milk products. It is relatively closely related to Hungarian, Czech, Polish, and Austrian cuisine. On the east it is also influenced by Ukrainian, including Lemko and Rusin. In comparison with other European countries, game meat is more accessible in Slovakia due to vast resources of forest and because hunting is relatively popular. Boar, rabbit, and venison are generally available throughout the year. Lamb and goat are eaten but are not widely popular. The traditional Slovak meals are brinzov holicky, brinzov pyrohy, and other meals with potato dough and brinza. Brinza is a salty cheese made of sheep milk, characterized by a strong taste and aroma. Brinzov holicky especially is considered a national dish, and is very commonly found on the menu of traditional Slovak restaurants. A typical soup is a sauerkraut soup. A blood sausage called kravavnica, made from any parts of a butchered pig, is also a specific Slovak meal. Wine is enjoyed throughout Slovakia. Slovak wine comes predominantly from the southern areas along the Danube and its tributaries. The northern half of the country is too cold and mountainous to grow grapevines. Traditionally, white wine was more popular than red or rose except in some regions, and sweet wine more popular than dry. However, in recent years tastes seem to be changing. Beer, mainly of the Pilsener style, though dark lagers are also consumed, is also popular.